This video was brought to you by Factor. I think it's safe to assume at the beginning of a new year, a lot of folks make plans to start taking better care of themselves and start hitting the gym or brush up on their yoga routines. But exercise is only part of the equation. What you put in your mouth is just as, if not more important. But finding that right balance of nutrition and stuff that actually tastes like food is made more complicated than it should be. But that's why Factor is here to save the day. Now owned by HelloFresh, who I've worked with in the past before. So on top of what Factor offers, you also have all the options that HelloFresh gives you too. Factor specializes in delivering fresh dietitian-approved meals carefully crafted by dedicated chefs directly to your doorstep that's ready to eat in just 2 minutes. It's less time worrying what you should be cooking tonight and more time you could be spent focusing on your wellness goals for the day. That's convenience you can't beat. You literally just pop them in the microwave and the food comes out all nice and hot. And I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. One of the first meals I tried out was the grilled steakhouse filet mignon, and I was skeptical. Microwave steaks can come out rubbery, but no man, this is one of the best steak meals I ever had, and it only took me a couple minutes. And there's plenty more where that came from. You can enjoy over 100 rotating weekly options covering meals, salads, breakfasts, protein shakes, all balanced with great taste and nutrition and made with real ingredients. It's time to start eating right so that you can feel right. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code SCMJFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code SCMJFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. As a heads up, the offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video, and thank you as always for helping support this channel. Now let's continue on with the show. Okie doke, it's time to look at the last Spyro game for the PlayStation and the last Spyro game created by Insomniac. Yeah, after this game, Insomniac would move on to other ideas as they prepare for the next generation, and because they thought after this game they couldn't think of anything to do with the guy and wanted to move on. I'm reminded of Naughty Dog, Crash Bandicoot, he gets 3 games, technically forced, and spin-off or not, Crash Team Racing was still a Naughty Dog project, but then after that, wrap it up, it's time to move on to something else. And considering Crash Bandicoot Warped was and still is my favorite of the original trilogy, and because Insomniac and Naughty Dog were so close during this time period, sharing notes and all that, in a strange way, this made me optimistic for Spyro's third outing. And man, did I need that, since while I enjoyed the first 2 games enough for their own reasons, I can't say I've been made a fan of the Purple Dragon just yet. There just wasn't enough in either game to make me want to consider a revisit on my own time. So does Insomniac end their stint with Spyro on a high note? Will this be the one to finally grab me? Well, I have to say I was already heading into this one a bit cautiously. Before even getting into the game, many of you guys insisted that I made sure I was playing the Greatest Hits version, or Revision 1, because the original Black Label was rushed for holiday release, resulting in a bunch of quirks slipping through the cracks like missing audio tracks. That's when I learned, yeah, Year of the Dragon was developed and released in just under a year after the initial release of Ripto's Rage. And when something's pushed for holidays, you can only hope the game doesn't suffer from compromise. So alright, I made sure to play the Greatest Hits version of the game, and I recommend you guys do that as well if you're thinking about playing the original PlayStation version of this game. And I'm happy to say Year of the Dragon is still competently made, but I have issues. Let's start with that story first. The Land of the Dragons is beginning to celebrate their Year of the Dragon festivities, honoring the celebration of newborn dragons that are brought to the land by, I assume, copious amounts of fucking. Look at all those eggs. These folks got busy. However, in the middle of their giant snooze fest, a mysterious girl and a couple of lackeys begin stealing the dragon eggs from under their nose and almost completely get away with it too, were it not for the girl accidentally stepping on Hunter's tail and giving up the game. Though they're unable to stop her from escaping, the fairy Zoe is able to discern that the bandits took the eggs to the Forgotten Worlds on the other side of the realm, where the dragons used to reside over 1,000 years ago, but were banished by the evil sorceress ruling the land. But because dragons are the source of magic in this domain, the Forgotten World's magic power has been slowly diminishing, something you'd think a sorceress would realize sooner rather than later, but I guess we all have our flaws. The sorceress wants to kidnap all the baby dragons and harvest their wings to concoct a spell that will grant her immortality, even going so far as to eventually kill them all because she's just a dastardly bitch. The other dragons place their faith in Spyro to rescue the dragon eggs, as he's the only one who can reasonably fit in the hole in the ground to the Forgotten Worlds, and joining alongside him is Hunter from the last game, offering Spyro assistance here and there with egg collecting and teaching Spyro sick nasty tricks he learned from Tony Hawk or some other shit. Still kind of a bumbling oaf though.
Look out, sheep, here I come!
Together, they travel through all the different realms located within the Forgotten Worlds, retrieving whatever dragon eggs they can find and helping the locals deal with the sorceress's swarm of minions known as Rhinox. Year of the Dragon story is pretty routine, and if you ask me as far as villains go, the sorceress does more for me than Nasty. She definitely has more screen time, but she doesn't hold a candle compared to Ripto. I mean, she doesn't even get any direct interaction with Spyro himself, not even for the final encounter. She just pops in like a regular mook and handled just as anticlimactically. Unfortunately, while I found the dialogue you can have with the world's inhabitants to be funny, I did notice they took away the individual world introductions. It wasn't much, but I liked how it set the stage for the kind of shenanigans I was about to get involved with in each level. As such, I think Forgotten Worlds doesn't have as much personality and isn't as memorable as Avalar. A regression from Ripto's rage, which is a spoiler warning I might be saying a couple of times in this video. But again, to emphasize, the writing is still damn funny. Year of the Dragon got several laughs out of me.
Alas, I have lost my love, guarded by evil Rhinox at the top of yonder tower. Can you rescue her for me?
What? Marco sent you here? I've got a restraining order against him.
I also think this game has some legitimately neat character development. So the mysterious girl turns out to be, I guess you can call her a sorceress in training named Bianca, who was originally under the false assumption that the sorceress just wanted to collect the dragon eggs to restore the Forgotten World's magical power. But once the sorceress reveals her true motives, she quickly turns a new leaf and begins to assist Spyro, even developing a relationship with Hunter. You know what? Good for Hunter. I'm sorry for ever thinking he was secretly a bad guy, but he could still eat my ass for that damn crystal minigame. Bianca's a pretty cool character, and I like her growth throughout the story. Starts as the typical minion, kind of sucks at being intimidating, has trouble reciting spells, but the conflict from within is clear from the get-go, and soon, after taking enough abuse from the sorceress and learning of her true motives, she grows more confident in her abilities, puts the hood down, and generally becomes a decent person towards Spyro and Hunter. The interactions between her and Hunter are legitimately adorable and great. I just hope this isn't a one-night stand, you get me? But that's not all, isn't there? No, throughout the whole game, Spyro also gets assistance from his new friends, Sheila the Kangaroo, Sergeant Bird, Bentley the Yeti, and Agent 9, and I think they're okay, but they don't really go much beyond their introductions, mainly because they're not really involved in any other story beat after you rescue them. They kind of just hang around the hub worlds until it's boss time. While ultimately harmless, I don't think they add anything to the game's narrative, or add much to the world's flavor. But I do like how all of them give moneybag shit for returning and being a greedy asshole once again. My favorites were Sergeant Bird and Bentley the Yeti. I just find the idea of a war-ready penguin that learned to fly with his army of hummingbirds to be inherently funny. And I love how Bentley, for as large and imposing as he looks, you'd think he'd be the dumb brute, but no, he's the most intelligent and sophisticated of the bunch. Kinda reminds me of Ultra Humanite. I appreciate the subversion. And the characters aren't just for show, they're also joining Spyro in the game, bringing a different flavor of platforming to the table, but nothing too radically game-changing. I'm gonna start with Spyro first, since he's still who you're mainly playing as. And right off the bat, I'm happy to see Spyro retain the hover from the second game. And he starts with his upgrades too, meaning he can ground pound to break shit, climb up walls, and swim in water naturally now, and doesn't need to give money begs any superfluous spending outside of the times you already do. I couldn't help but feel though that Sparx's gem grabbing range was nerfed, because as early as the first world, I was missing gems almost constantly that I could have sworn I was close enough to nab with him. In fact, I want to talk about this now. The gem placement in this game fucking sucks. It's been a bit since I played the last two games, granted, but I don't remember gems either individually or inside objects being placed so far apart from each other. My default movement speed in this game might as well have been Spyro's dash, because I felt like I was doing that through like 95% of my adventure here. But then it turns out Sparx gets a few of these bonus levels to himself after you beat that world's boss. And to quickly talk about these aren't bad. They're top-down shoot-em-up levels. You blast things with fireballs and grab upgrades to unleash more mayhem when they're available. Reminds me a bit of Gauntlet, which, fun fact, when I told my friend who was watching me record this that it reminded me of that game, he asked me, what was Gauntlet, and my fucking soul shriveled like a raisin. My only complaint is that I wish these were proper twin-stick shoot-em-ups. Have the left analog stick move Sparx, while the right analog stick shoots in whatever direction you tilt, like in Geometry Wars if you ever played that. Instead, you gotta hold the shoulder buttons down to lock Sparx into place for precision aiming, which I think feels a little cumbersome in the thick of it. Maybe they thought analog controller DualShock wasn't common enough yet and wanted to make sure folks could still play with the traditional PlayStation controller. Anyway, continuing on. Beating these levels grants Sparx extra abilities, and the first one you get is an extended range for gem collection, and immediately I was like, I knew it! I feel they nerfed Sparx's default gem grabbing range to make this upgrade feel more impactful. And while I'm happy to get some fix for this problem, I don't like when sequels do that. They de-emphasize or completely take away something you had just fine in the last game. Also, it could be a reward for a bonus in the next game. And it doesn't stop there, because one of Sparx's other upgrades he can get is the Gem Radar, which if you hold all 4 of the shoulder buttons down, Sparx will point to the closest gem you haven't collected anywhere on the map, which is a godsend in this game. Oh my god. But then I learned from my friend Eric, who's a fan of the classic Spyro games, this was something Sparx had naturally in the second game. I didn't know that. God, if I did, I wouldn't have spent time bitching about gem hunting in the last review. But still, they took away something Sparx had naturally, just so that you can re-earn it here after a bonus level. And look, I'd be okay with that if there was any justification. I don't know, say the sorceress blasted Sparx with magic and made him forget, infect him with a virus, throw a rock at him, something. I just don't like when it's unexplained. But besides that, Spyro's about the same as before. I didn't really notice any change to his controls, still turned as wide as I remember him doing. But it wasn't that big of a deal this time, since I find the level design in Year of the Dragon to ultimately be less punishing than in Ripto's Rage. No, if there's one problem I had with Year of the Dragon's levels, and of course assuming you're going for everything, which I did, god damn, some of these levels are marathons, mainly because of what's asked of you to collect dragon eggs, the main MacGuffin of this game. And to be fair, a good chunk of them just requires Spyro getting to a specific point. And there's a bunch of hidden eggs you can find with good enough intuition. Those were my favorite to collect. I like my sense of exploration validated. This also led me to actually scoring a few skill points this go around too. These were technically introduced in Ripto's Rage, but I neglected to mention them because I thought they were insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They're bragging rights, rewarded to you for going above and beyond or thinking outside the box, but not at all necessary to 100% the game. Still, some levels like Enchanted Towers, the Spooky Swamp, God, the Lost Fleet, and Haunted Tombs felt like they went on forever because of repetitive level objectives and not having a good sense of direction. Holy fuck, look at the knockers on this one though. I'm sorry, what was I saying? Haunted Tombs, good god, getting every gem in this stage is monotonous as fuck, with you needing to use rocks from the golems to break coffins, and then you gotta do that one more time to deal with the golem throwing rocks at you. That tank section towards the end that feels weird to control for one thing, but if you fuck up, you have to keep answering this dude's riddle, which never changes, so after the first time, it's like, why are we still doing this? What also doesn't help me is that Year of the Dragon removed the map feature of Ripto's Rage, and I'm like, why'd they do that? Did they forget? Was it considered cumbersome? I like the map feature from before. It helped me plan a course of action. Helped remind me of where I haven't been to yet. Without that, good god, I got turned around a bunch. And sometimes my progression wasn't so much halted by the lack of a map, I felt the game was actively fucking with me. What the fuck? Oh good lord, that damn rock just went right through that asshole. This is one of the worst ninjas I've ever seen. Firstly, I can see him clear as day. And he's so sure he's gonna run through that wall. That's a damn shame. I'm trying to guide this wolf back to his master. You do that by playing fetch with him. You throw the ball, he goes wherever the ball goes. I'm trying to make him jump across his platform, but something happened and now he's just running through the fucking walls with reckless abandon. Why are you going places where I can't follow, wolf? I gotta reset the mission though, I'm soft locked. In Lost Fleet, I spent around 20 minutes wondering how the fuck to proceed because I shit you not, the magical tornado thing that gets you to higher ground does not spawn in your field of vision unless you're right next to that son of a bitch. That tilted the shit out of me. I wish I was recording my microphone when I first saw that. Nothing got under my skin more than the damn skateboarding levels, and when I first got here, it unlocked a core memory for me. It reminded me, oh wait, I have played a bit of Spyro 3 before. I sampled it via a PlayStation demo, and it was the first skateboard level, and I remember thinking back then, hey, I don't like this. Alright, so I don't hate these. When I say they get under my skin, it's more because I just find them annoying. When the chips are down, I can do what's asked of me. And I did find some fun in doing tricks for high points. I even accidentally found myself doing a nasty Nork to score myself the second egg during the score attack against Hunter. A win's a win, take what you can get. But these are just so against the grain of the standard Spyro experience, and clearly Insomniac jumping on the trend what was popular at the time, Xtreme sports. A few of these I just found redundant, like skateboard racing, which I recognize now that Ratchet & Clank's hoverboard racing was based off of this. Insomniac was just testing waters with Spyro first. The game already has you racing in the traditional flight levels, which I feel are more up Spyro's alley. He's a dragon. The skateboard stuff, especially the final one against the Sasquatch 6 with their stupid rubber banding bullshit, are just frustrating and more fulfilling to complete. It's one thing to do flippity dippity stuff in the skateboard park at your leisure. It's another thing when you're trying to do that in the middle of a race for boost power, because I think it just highlights how loose the damn skateboard feels in midair. Yeesh, hard pass for me. That said, everything else Spyro gets involved with I found perfectly okay, and I got no real complaints. Yeah. As a Simpsons fan, I just love that there's a level called the Fireworks Factory. Somebody tell Milhouse we finally got there. And it's funny too, because Milhouse for over 30 years was voiced by Pamela Hayden, who voices Bianca in this game. I wonder if that was the gag.
Look here, Dragon. If you know what's good for you, you'll turn around and crawl back up that hole you came through. Everything's coming up.
Bianca. To mention again, I also think all the NPCs you meet along the way are pretty funny. They brought back those two psychic kids from Ripto's Rage, and now they're doing Matrix shit to beat up Rhinox. And I gotta ask, why aren't these two helping us throughout the game? They're clearly capable. And you know what? Bring along the big titty Lara Croft reference too. I gladly take these guys over someone like Agent 9. So Year of the Dragon introduces us to some new friends of Spyro, and collectively, they don't alter the gameplay too radically. Sheila the kangaroo can't fly or glide, but she can kick the shit out of things, perform a second jump for platforming, and even do a super jump, which the game strangely calls a double jump, but I don't agree with that. Besides that, her sections normally don't ask for much besides fundamental platforming or basic combat. Shit, one of her last levels is a 2D throwback that's the epitome of this. You're literally just holding right and jumping when you need to, and it's over before you know it. I just found that a strange way to end her journey. Sergeant Bird has an infinite supply of rockets and can fly to his heart's content, but he's dreadfully slow in the air and turns so heavily that he kind of reminds me of Diddy Kong's jetpack sections from Donkey Kong 64. But I didn't really mind him at all. I love blowing shit up, whether it's those blue dudes in Enchanted Towers or all of those cat witches in Charmed Ridge, which, fun fact, if you hang around their spawn point and get the rhythm down, you can snipe most of them as soon as they pop in and make the mission a total breeze. That felt good. Bentley is just a big fuck with a stick. Doesn't amount to much besides moving blocks and breaking things, which can be cathartic, but I find this gameplay sections bare bones. I didn't find anything particularly memorable outside of the boxing match. Glad to see I could win just by rhythmatically tapping the jab button. I even managed a skill point for it. This ain't Punch-Out shit, it's not even ready to roll with boxing, but it's okay. Agent 9 I wanted to like more. He's a space monkey and he's packing heat, goddammit. A prototype Ratchet. Like, it's fascinating to see that Insomniac were clearly already thinking of Ratchet and Clank by this game if you know what to look for. But Agent 9 ain't Ratchet. That space gun has a piss poor rate of fire, he's slow on the ground and not as nimble as other characters, and I find his ability to lob explosives to be clunky. The couple of missions where you go through a level in first person like a game of Time Crisis or House of the Dead, I thought those were cool, a little long in the tooth, but fun arcade action. This shit though, wasn't really a fan. Not the worst side character I've experienced, but Agent 9 feels like a hindrance compared to everyone else. At the risk of disappointing Spyro fans, I'm sorry to say I kind of found Year of the Dragon the worst of the classic trilogy. For everything it does right, I feel it also counterbalances that by regressing from Ripto's Rage for no real reason. I think the level variety and hub worlds are better, but the levels themselves can be overly long, and they took away the map to make exploring snappier. Year of the Dragon isn't as heavy with minigames, but in their place are those sections with friends that aren't always the most stimulating, or it's something involving a clunky vehicle that controls like shit, or a skateboard park. I think the story beats and character interactions are the best they've ever been, but I found the Sorceress to be an uninteresting non-entity who, to mention again, doesn't even get a direct interaction with Spyro himself. I mean, Ripto also could have been in more scenes, but at least he actually talked to the damn dragon, you know? Hell, I found the bosses in general a step back from before. It's still better than the first game. That's a low bar though. But what was it? This guy here, he wasn't very interesting. I thought this guy here, the second boss, was the most difficult of the bunch. He's so damn aggressive. Are we sure he wasn't supposed to follow this guy? He's so much easier to read and deal with. The Sorceress battle, I could have gone without the forced vehicles, especially in the true final battle, because this damn flying saucer just ain't fun. I can barely see where I'm aiming with this thing. It just feels like a lesser fight with Ripto without any of the cool dragon powers. Just to be clear, I didn't find the game bad. Year of the Dragon isn't bad at all. But out of my experiences with all three original games on the PlayStation, I found myself the most irritated with this one. Again, some levels were just exhausting to get through, and depending on the buddy needed to fully finish them, that could just make things a little worse. But honestly, I think the thing that doesn't help is that I'm still finding it difficult to find the core Spyro gameplay stimulating. Like, it still doesn't scratch that itch for me. And though measures were taken to make Spyro more engaging, I don't know, I think in the process of trying to make Spyro more fun and whimsical, new cracks are formed in the foundation that I find myself stumbling over repeatedly. Amusingly enough, this has given me a new appreciation for the first game, believe it or not. Yeah, you see the entire gameplay loop in under half an hour, but fuck, you know what you're getting, and you don't have to worry about sudden curveballs like minigames or new friends thrown your way that you may or may not appreciate. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with a tested formula to see what works and what doesn't, but so far, what Spyro tries to do differently for the sake of variety comes at the cost of that consistent coziness that made the first game appealing for some. I think at the end of my journey through the PlayStation 1 Spyro games, I'm comfortable in saying that I believe the first game might just be my favorite of the bunch. Ain't that some shit? Yeah, but sometimes these are perspectives you don't initially develop from the get-go, and you need the context of other games to make you see things in a different lens, and I think that's what's happening here. And it's funny, off the top of my head, I think this is an experience unique to Spyro compared to other franchises I have, other platforming games I reviewed on this channel. I think my experiences with Kirby are the closest thing that comes to mind, where you still enjoy the series as it goes along, but there are some things about its original incarnations that you still admire over the other games because of how more simplistic it was, how straightforward it was outside of like all the zaniness that the series eventually goes into. Again, that's off the top of my head though. It's been years since I last played Kirby, but you know, while Kirby is on the mind, I think that's ultimately where I fall in line with Spyro so far. We're only 3 games in, I'm aware, but you know, there are going to be some series where it just doesn't click with me. Like, I appreciate what it means to others, but for me personally, I'm trying and it's just not working for me. And there's nothing else I can really say other than, you know, I will continue to go along the rest of the games when I get to them, but I think maybe the writing is already on the wall for what I feel about Spyro the Dragon as a franchise, and that's fine. I'm not going to enjoy everything that I play. I don't hate everything I play, but I also don't necessarily find everything that I play in a platforming scene to be enjoyable as like some of my other favorite franchises like Sonic or Mario or Crash Bandicoot, to use them as a more immediate example. So again, I do want to apologize for those that were hoping I was a little more enthusiastic about looking at the first 3 Spyro games, considering that I've ignored them for so long. But now that I finally got them under my belt, I realize I wasn't missing much, and there's really nothing else I can say about that. However, call it a morbid curiosity, but I don't want to leave Spyro the Dragon alone just yet. I want to look at one more Spyro game before we wrap up my first visit with the Purple Dragon, and that is the first PlayStation 2 game, the first non-Insomniac, I think it was the first non-Insomniac Games to develop Spyro the Dragon game, and that is Enter the Dragonfly. It was for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. I think I'm going to look at the PlayStation 2 version. Now, that's not coming up immediately just yet. I want to look at a couple of other things before I go back into Spyro, as I'm getting ready to, make 2026 a bit more of a productive year than last year and the year before, now that I'm thinking about it out loud. So when we reconvene for Spyro the Dragon, it will be Enter the Dragonfly, which I've heard things, it's kind of hard not to, given how the fans I surround myself with, but I want to see with my own eyes what exactly I'm getting myself into with that, but that will be for later. I will catch you guys next time after my next Patreon shoutouts, of course. All right, so once again, a big love and thank you and appreciation for all of my Patreon supporters over at my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Somecallmejohnny. And here's some shoutouts to some more $10 patrons, starting with Nerbert, Schmam, Crotix, Jep, David Billeton, Mike Weissman, 1294406, Sliced Roma Tomatoes, 21st Century Guy, 3 Sticks, 8-Bit Bio, 9zilla2, A Purple Dragon, A Alto, Aaron S, Ace Jetstream, Ack Fusion, Adam Tompkins, Admiral Onichan, Aiden Smith, Afik Eliyahu, or Eli Yahoo, Agent Tex, Aiden Miller, Akurui Sora, or SKB99, Albert, Allens33025, Alex Denti, Alex K. Rowland, Alex Ma, Alex McLean, Alex Moretti, Alexander Rayway, Alan Knight. Oh, look, there's a lot of Alexes there. And these are all alphabetized now, if you couldn't tell. So, Angry Doorman, Anguished Fool, Anon Snake, Anton, Arcanist729, Orizo97, Ashley, Austin, Average Joe, Axel Port, B612 Gonzalo, B Senpai97, Bad Guy Not Fun Guy, Banbert 2000, Barry Aldridge, Benjo Kenzui, Beowulf the Bounty Hunter, Big Red MC 716, Bilbo Baggins, Billy Bob Boy, Biotroid, Blake Jekyll, Blank Screen TV, Blazebree, Blue Dino, Bojack51, Boosted D Drake, Boardman, Bort, Boss Karma, Bottle Witch, Brack Rizak, and finally for today, Brandon Ellis. I will catch you guys with the next video, which is not going to be terribly long for now. This is something I had in the back burner for almost a year and a half at this point. I've recorded it on my downtime with a few friends of mine, and I think it's about time I finally make the video. So I hope you guys look forward to that afterwards. We will talk about future 2026 plans. With all that said, thank you all for watching. Stay safe out there. Have yourselves a fantastic night and take care.